Good day. I am Dan Latimore, Celent's Chief Research Officer, and I would like to chat briefly with you about developments in core banking, particularly as they relate to cores in the cloud. There is no doubt that core banking has changed more in the last 5 years than it had in the last 20. And a large part of that is due to advances in cloud technology. We think that we are at the point where it is going to be more viable to migrate to a core in the cloud than it is to maintain a legacy system. This tipping point is upon us for several reasons. First of all, the total cost of ownership is increasing for heritage cores, and it's maturing and coming down and becoming more manageable for these new cloud cores. The lack of flexibility, perhaps even more importantly, is really beginning to hamper banks with traditional cores as they seek to compete in a world of open banking and embedded finance. Security is becoming tougher to maintain for these heritage cores, and the cloud providers have really begun to address this, and they've got enormous resources to toss at it. The path to progressive modernization is becoming much clearer. Providers are getting a lot more practice, and it's getting to be a lot easier. The risks have been reduced. And finally, the economic models are maturing, governance is improving, and it is easier to get a handle on the costs of cloud ownership and to make those variable. Now, Intellect Global Consumer Banking has addressed this phenomenon of cloud cores with their 5C framework, which you can read more about and listen more about in the interview. It is contextual, it has comprehensive functionality, it is built for a connected ecosystem with a composable architecture, and they maintain that it is cloud native and that it is agnostic with respect to platform providers. You can learn more about Intellect Global Consumer Banking's offering in the attached video, and you can read and learn more about cloud at celent.com on our Cloud Hub page. Thanks very much. Good day and welcome to another in Celent's series on cloud core providers. I'm Dan Latimore, Celent's Chief Research Officer, and I am delighted today to welcome Raju Daryani of Intellect Design. Welcome. Raju, can you give us an introduction to yourself and to what Intellect Design is doing with cloud in the core?
Sure. So I'm Raju Daryani and Executive Vice President, Head of the Digital Core at Intellect Design Arena. And what we'd like to position here is where are we heading with this digital core and what's our view of the world? So just a bit on that. So we are seeing everybody knows the digital and where things are going with digital. What we have done specifically is we have built our entire design concept on the 5C structure. So there are 5 pillars on which we have built this. So let me go through that. That's basically the first one is the contextual part. The second happens to be the comprehensive functionality that we cover. The third one is the connected architecture, which is basically bringing in the ecosystem. The fourth one is the composable side of our architecture, and I'll go through that in a bit. And the fifth is the cloud native side of it. So looking at the contextual, I mean, Dan, we've all seen situations where we get different kind of, flyers and marketing information from banks, and which are not really relevant to us at all, and not at all at that position of life where we are. So you might get an offer for a loan when you're really not looking for one. And that's the last thing that you really want to do. So the contextual side of it is where we are looking at hyper-personalization, bringing information to customers exactly at the time where they are in their life cycle. So this is what we believe is one of the key pillars of where digital needs to head, and basically looking at how this would be applicable, and therefore how would the customer actually take up to this rather than receive information which is not relevant. So that's the first pillar. The second one being the comprehensive side. What we have developed in our core is the entire breadth of functionality that would be required from a banking perspective. So it's all the way from deposits over to lending, treasury, trade finance, wealth, as well as cards. So we service that entire gamut. That makes it easier for the bank to be able to expand and do what is needed from the client's perspective. So that's the comprehensive side of it. The connected ecosystem. This is an important part of where digital is heading, according to us. What we see is that banks want to be able to act as a financial supermarket, which means they would be able to offer services which may not be necessarily banking related, but needs to be something which the client is looking to do. For example, an insurance. For example, we look at trying to do some kind of e-commerce buy or sell and have an immediate loan attached to it. All these things require the system to be very open, in the sense it's got to be microservices based. It has to be API first driven and allow the third parties to be able to integrate without requiring a lot of coding or any kind of huge UATs, etc., that may go with it. So that's our third pillar of what we are talking of, the connected ecosystem. The fourth important one we also believe is composability. Now, we've seen that anything for banks to change core banking could vary anything between 12 and 18 months, depending on the size of bank. However, if the system is fully composable in nature and where we can implement verticals or look at implementing certain areas which are the main key points and which then helps the bank to have quick wins, that is the part of what we think the composable architecture becomes very, very strong. For example, the bank has a legacy core system, and to change a medium to large bank, changing that is a lot of time and investment into the situation. However, they need to be able to see some returns and some change in perception from a digital banking perspective in the short term. So therefore, we are able to even move that into a composable mechanism where they can get a win in a 3-6 month time frame, move their entire digital strategy ahead, whereas then go into a slow range of trying to replace other verticals as we go along. So that's the part of where we are looking at the composable angle. And cloud native, as we know it from the word, I won't go further because your entire thing is based on cloud. And so that's what we are. We are basically cloud agnostic, and we have instances on all the three major clouds that we are talking about.